You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. First things first, a quick apology. My voice isn't really a voice. It's an AI-generated one, which means that sometimes when I try to pronounce Hebrew words, they come out sounding like your GPS trying to say Shabbat Shalom while recalculating directions to the nearest deli. So if you hear me say something that sounds a little off, don't worry, it's not your ears. It's me. Well, not really me. Anyway, today's topic is the Zealots. Now I know what you're thinking. Zealots sounds like a heavy metal band that opens for Metallica, but nope, they were a real group of Jews in the first century, and boy did they shake things up. They weren't the calm synagogue board members arguing over bagel flavors. These were fighters, rebels, and sometimes fanatics. They believed freedom from Rome was worth everything. Buckle up, because this is one dramatic, action-packed chapter in Jewish history. So, who were the Zealots exactly? Think of them like the extreme sports edition of Jewish resistance movements. While some Jews tried diplomacy with Rome, and others said, let's pray harder and wait, the Zealots were like, nope, grab a sword, grab your courage, we're going full Braveheart. Their name in Hebrew, Kanaim, literally means people who are zealous or passionate. And trust me, they had passion to spare. Their motto could have been, live free or die trying, except without the New Hampshire license plate. These folks were so committed to Jewish independence that compromise wasn't in their vocabulary. Picture the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars, but with less X-Wings and more daggers tucked under cloaks. In fact, one splinter group of zealots was called the Sicarii, from the Latin word for dagger. These guys literally carried short, curved blades, ready for close combat or even assassinations. If you think politics today gets messy, well, ancient Jerusalem could have given Twitter arguments a run for their money. Let's set the stage. The first century was a roller coaster for the Jewish people living in Judea. Rome was the superpower of the world, controlling the land with armies, governors, and heavy taxes. Imagine paying your Netflix subscription, your Hulu subscription, your Prime subscription, and then Rome shows up at your door saying, oh, by the way, here's another bill, and if you don't pay, we'll take your goat. Understandably, tensions were high. Different groups of Jews responded differently. The Sadducees, wealthy priestly families, tried to keep the peace with Rome. The Pharisees focused on religious life, study, and traditions. The Essenes said, we're out, and moved to the desert like ancient off-the-grid homesteaders. But the Zealots said, enough already. We're not paying taxes to pagans. We're not bowing to Roman emperors. We'll fight to the death if we have to. And that's exactly what they did. Their fiery resistance didn't just ruffle Roman feathers. It helped spark the Great Jewish Revolt in 66 CE. The Great Revolt was basically the Jewish people's version of declaring independence, except instead of signing a neat document like the Declaration of Independence, it was more like, grab your weapons, barricade the streets, we're going to war. The Zealots were central in launching this massive rebellion against Rome. At first, believe it or not, they actually had some success. Jewish forces managed to kick Roman garrisons out of Jerusalem and score a few shocking victories. Imagine little Judea knocking out a heavyweight champion in the first round. People thought, maybe, just maybe, this could work. But Rome was Rome. When Rome got serious, they didn't just send one legion, they sent several. It was like bringing in the entire NFL to play against your local flag football team. Things got brutal quickly. Still, the Zealots refused to give up, even when it was clear the odds were stacked sky high against them. Their stubborn courage became both legendary and tragic. Now here's where things get even more dramatic. Inside Jerusalem, the Zealots weren't just fighting Romans, they were fighting other Jews. Different factions argued about how to handle the crisis. Some wanted compromise, others wanted all-out war. The Zealots were so hardcore that they burned food supplies inside the city to force everyone into resistance. Yep, you heard that right. They destroyed their own stockpiles of grain to eliminate any thought of surrender. It was the ancient equivalent of deleting your homework so you're forced to finish the group project. Except, instead of an angry teacher, you had Roman soldiers at your gates. This move made them infamous. To some Jews, they were heroes willing to risk everything for freedom. To others, they were reckless fanatics, making a bad situation worse. This internal conflict only weakened the Jewish side and gave Rome the upper hand. And Rome, as history shows us, didn't need much help to win a war. One of the most famous last stands of the Zealots happened not in Jerusalem, but at Masada. Picture a desert fortress on top of a massive rock plateau, with it practically unreachable unless you climb a giant snake-like path up the side. After Jerusalem fell in 70 CE and the temple was destroyed, a group of zealots holed up in Masada, refusing to surrender. The Romans, determined to crush every pocket of resistance, built an enormous ramp to storm the fortress. That alone deserves a slow clap. Building a siege ramp in desert heat was no small task. When the Romans finally broke through in 73 CE, they found that the defenders had chosen mass death over surrender. According to Josephus, the Jewish historian, the Zealots killed each other in a grim lottery, so no one would be taken as a slave. It's a story that has echoed for centuries, debated by scholars, but remembered as one of the most dramatic moments in Jewish history. Now, before you think of the Zealots as either total heroes or total villains, here's the tricky part. Their legacy is complicated. On one hand, their courage and refusal to give in to oppression has inspired generations. They became symbols of Jewish resistance, freedom fighters who said, "We will not bow to idols or emperors." On the other hand, their extremism arguably helped bring about the destruction of the temple and untold suffering. It's like when you binge a TV series and can't decide if the character is a genius or a disaster. Think Walter White in Breaking Bad or Anakin Skywalker going full Darth Vader. Were the Zealots protectors of Jewish dignity or reckless fanatics who doomed their people? Historians and rabbis have argued both sides for nearly 2,000 years, and depending on your perspective, both can be true. That's what makes studying them so fascinating. They're not a simple story of good versus bad, but a messy, very human struggle. Culturally, the story of the Zealots has been retold countless times. In modern Israel, Masada became a powerful symbol. For years, Israeli soldiers would climb the mountain at night and swear an oath, "Masada shall not fall again." It gave the ancient story a modern twist, connecting the past fight for survival with the present. The Zealots also pop up in pop culture. They're in novels, movies, and documentaries, often portrayed as the ultimate underdogs facing impossible odds. And admit it, who doesn't love an underdog story? Rocky Balboa had nothing on these guys. But there's also caution in their tale. They remind us that passion, if unchecked, can lead to destruction as much as liberation. Too much zeal can burn down your own house. Their story is both inspiring and sobering, like watching a superhero movie where the hero saves the city but accidentally levels half the buildings in the process. That's the Zealots in a nutshell. Brave, bold, and complicated. So what can we take away from the Zealots today, beyond an epic story? For one, their determination shows the strength of Jewish identity. Even under crushing empire, they refuse to surrender their beliefs or dignity. That's powerful. At the same time, their story is also a warning against letting zeal tip into fanaticism. Passion is good, but passion without wisdom can backfire big time. It's the same lesson we tell kids playing Monopoly. Don't flip the board just because you're losing. It ruins the game for everyone. The Zealots teach us about courage, resilience, and also the dangers of extremism. Their actions changed the course of Jewish history, for better and for worse, and we're still unpacking those consequences today. History isn't just dusty old facts. It's stories like this, dramatic and full of messy choices that show us how human beings wrestle with power, faith, and freedom. And sometimes those struggles echo louder than any victory. And that brings us to the end of our journey with the Zealots. From daggers in Jerusalem to the heights of Masada, their story is unforgettable. They were bold, stubborn, courageous, divisive, tragic, and heroic all rolled into one. In short, very human. History may not always give us neat lessons wrapped in a bow, but it does give us stories that make us think about our own choices today. So next time someone calls you a zealot for passionately defending your favorite pizza topping, just remember, you've got some serious historical company. Thank you for listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please forward it to a friend who might like it, or leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and maybe keep the daggers at home. After all, words are usually sharper than swords and less likely to get you into trouble at the dinner table.